Okay, folks, we're very excited to be here. We're starting our election coverage of the first ever in Alaska top 4 open primary election for the special U.S. House race to replace the late Congressman Don Young. And I'm very happy to be joined by Matt Shuckerow, political consultant. How you doing?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me. I told someone, I said after this one, I'm going to take a break from appearing on your show. So.
You've been on here 3 times in the last 10 days. So
I know. So
thanks for coming back, man.
Yeah, happy to be back.
And Ivan Moore, pollster, Alaska Survey Research. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I think you're the first time on the show here. So
I have not been to this splendid studio of yours before.
what do you think?
It's great. It's very cool.
Glad
Very professional.
Glad you guys both can make it. Really excited. We're going to be going over the results, which should be around 8:30 or 9, the Division of Elections tells us, and we're going to be going over the results. And this is not going to be the final results. There's a lot more votes that have been coming in over the last several days, and they're going to do an update next week. But we're going to probably have a pretty decent idea of who the top 4 are going to be, unless there's a potentially very close tie or very close votes in some of these candidates. But before we start, I want to thank our sponsors, Blueprint Alaska, Sarikman Ward, Public Relations and Communications, great firm. If you ever need any kind of PR communications work, Blueprint's doing a great job. There's a weird box on the screen there. Thanks, Scott. And then Alaskans for Better Elections, who brought us this new system we have here, and this is our first time we're going to be doing this with the top 4. So we're going to have Jason Gren in studio later to talk to us a little bit. And then Cascadia Cross-Border Law Group, my friend Margaret Stock. She's one of the premier immigration attorneys in the country. So if you ever have any immigration issues or anything with immigration, you call Margaret Stock over at Cascadia Cross-Border Law Group. And obviously GCI are one of our...
What's her number?
Yeah, Ivan, you could use her, right? Are you still a permanent resident?
Yeah.
Maybe you should.
Thank you for that. No, it was yeah. Okay. Carry on.
We'll get you on there. And obviously GCI, one of our main sponsors for making these live streams possible. And then Scott Jensen's back there in the studio doing all the switching and all the camera work. So I want to thank Scott for doing that. We're actually joined. She came early. We're joined here in studio by one of the candidates, Tara Sweeney. You want to come on?
Sure.
We invited most of the candidates, all the serious candidates that have been raising money and campaigning. So have a seat.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming by. What do you think so far? It's the results are going to be out here in about maybe 30 minutes to an hour. What are you thinking?
I'm excited. We left everything out on the field, and we're running through the tape.
You've been visible on social media. There's a PAC supporting you. There's signs up. I mean, you're one of the more visible candidates. What's it like? What's it been like with all 48 people? It's so many people in a race.
Well, it certainly has been interesting to travel around the state to participate in debates and candidate forums with a number of the 48 of us. So it's been a lot of fun.
You and Josh Revak were both co-chairs for Don Young's campaign. You were assistant secretary. You go back with Don Young a long time. What was the reason you decided to, why did you decide you wanted to run when Congressman Young passed away?
Well, looking at the makeup of the congressional delegation and understanding, Matt, you've been back there and you certainly understand the grind that is Washington, D.C. And having an understanding of that landscape, with my professional experience, I decided to jump in the spirit and in the legacy of Don Young.
Now you're running for the special election, but also in the regular election. So
yeah.
It's going to be kind of interesting. I think for the folks watching the Politicos, the special general is going to be on the same regular primary ballot.
Yes.
Which I think is going to be maybe for some folks kind of hard to navigate, but you're going to be. I mean, between now you're going to go right over into a special general, but then there's also a regular primary.
Well,
I mean, it's like in the same ballot.
Right.
So you have
is it the same ballot or different, or 2 different ballots? To me, that's unclear right now, but I'm sure we're going to figure it out. And everyone in Alaska is going to be an armchair expert in ranked choice voting come November. It's a different election. And it's not easy, and we do it our own way in Alaska, and there are a number of people across the country that are watching this election.
Can I ask Tara, we're having an election that takes place on a Saturday, which is very unique, where everyone's used to having an election on a Tuesday. So can you talk to us a little bit about what your days leading up to today, normally it would be sign waving in the morning, you'd be headed to an election party, but what's kind of been your team has been focused on, and it's probably not just today, it's probably the last week.
The last week, we were up in Fairbanks earlier this week. We had a big sign waving session yesterday on the corner of Northern Lights and New Seward. Today we were out played rugby.
I tried playing rugby in college, and I was not good at it. It was really tough.
And today we were out at the city market, Diamond and South Anchorage as well.
Great.
So it's really about getting out and meeting Alaskans.
Well, it's definitely a historic type of election. I mean, 48 people. I think a lot of my friends who aren't really super political, they call me and they're just like, "Is this real? Like, is it, what's all these people? Who do I vote for?" And there's so many choices. So
Yes.
I think one thing too, we're going to see over the evening, everyone's questions how many people are going to be voting, what's the percentage of returns. We'll have to wait and see. But when you're out on the road and talking to people, particularly over the last week, I would imagine there's a lot of people who haven't returned their ballots, and I mean, for that reason, it can be anyone's game if you can get and turn people out, get people to return their ballots. What's been your experience over the last few days?
Well, again, this election is very unique. I had a conversation with my son this afternoon, and he was looking for his ballot. So he went over to the Division of Elections on Gamble and was able to vote in person absentee.
Yeah.
So there are, we have issues with the mail system in Alaska. There are delays that we see across the board. And so it is a challenge to communicate with Alaskans on the importance of getting their ballots in early.
Yeah, I mean, I had the same experience. I stopped and saw my mom and I said, "Have you voted?" And she said, "No." And we dug around in a stack of mail this big, found it, pulled it out, and she cast her ballot. So it's just, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are just like that.
It came out very early. I heard it was going to hit like May 15th, and it dropped like 10 days before that. And so it was out there sitting on people's tables for a long time.
I think for people in Anchorage, they're used to the vote by mail. We've been doing that since 2018, but for other people not in Anchorage, I think it's a little bit new to Fairbanks or Juneau or whatever other places where they're still doing the kind of traditional in-person and early absentee.
Yep.
So I agree. I think there was probably a lot of that because, let's face it, 48 candidates, people were kind of probably inclined to leave it for a little bit of time, find out as much as they could about the various people, and then your ballot gets lost and you don't know where it is.
Yeah. And I'll close out with on your son. I heard from someone, they're like, this isn't a mouse shout out. They're like, "I'm going to vote for that Tara Sweeney," and it's nice that her son was in Big Miracle.
I love that movie. And it's funny, that movie, he was in the movie, and then at the end there was that little Sarah Palin, Sarah Heath cameo. That,
Yes.
so it's full
anyways,
circle.
we have little factoids throughout the evening. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's not 10 anymore, right?
I know,
Yeah.
I think he probably has an IMDb, right? Because
He does. Yeah.
Oh, I don't have that, so maybe
Yeah.
someday.
Someday.
Well, thanks for coming on, Tara.
you.
Appreciate it. Best of luck tonight, and we'll be, I think probably in the next, 30 to 45 minutes, we're going to have these initial results out. So
Absolutely.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming on.
Yes.
We also
Thanks
have-
for doing this.
we have Jason Grenn in studio, which we're going to, somebody's going to come out and we'll grab Tara's mic and we'll get Jason mic'd up. But we'll go to him in a little bit and talk to him about the first. This is the first top 4 open primary with this new system that I think, with Don Young passing away, it really sped up this process for this new system by a factor of a few months. And I mean, you're a pollster. I mean, you polled a lot of races over the years. What's it like polling a race with 48? And you did that a month ago, right? You came out, you had a poll that.
There's 2 issues. The ranked choice voting is a learning curve, and we've gotten used to kind of how to ask that question, particularly the kind of ranking for people. But the 48 candidates, the fortunate thing is that we do most of our polling online these days. Back in the days, 3 or 4 years ago, when we were doing most of the stuff on the telephone, if you had 48 candidates, time is money on the phone where you're paying people to read the names, right? And you're going through a list of 36 people that no one has ever heard of. There were basically 12 people with name ID.
Let's bring up your poll here. We have your poll that you released a month ago here on the. Oh, there it is. There's Sarah Palin. So this was done a month ago, and obviously, campaigns, things change, but
Sure.
but you're looking at, like, a lot of us are kind of predicting or assuming there's going to be a very close race for the fourth place.
Yeah, no, I think fourth place is going, like you said, like, is it going to be close? Are we going to be up late? Kind of, how long is it going to take before we know what the deal is? It might be close between a whole bunch of the people who are vying for the fourth place spot. Third place might even come into it.
Hey, to the guys in the audio room, I got a text that said, "Can't hear Ivan Moreworth, blank. Mic that guy up."
Oh, where's your mic at? Oh, did it? Oh, I think
It's in here.
I think it
Okay.
fell.
Oh, is it
No
falling off?
worries. So shout out to Ephraim Freilich for
Oh,
that.
thanks for that. Yeah, let's get that on there. I'm gonna get you there, buddy.
Oh, okay.
It fell. It's we got
comes
Scott.
Scott.
We got
Here
Scott
comes
coming
the
in. We got a
I
little,
mean, it's
little-
early. There's probably
Look at
like
him with
12
those-
people watching, so.
I don't know what happened there.
It fell.
Thank you very much.
All right, there we go. We
Worries.
got him.
Hey, shout out. I'm not sponsored by Apple Watch, but thank you to
Thanks,
Apple
Matt.
Watch.
That was great. Yeah, appreciate that.
Good
Ephraim.
catch.
Okay, so we were talking about the poll, but
So in the poll, Palin was out in front, 19. Begich was in second, 16. Al Gross was in third, 13. But that was kind of before Al Gross kind of got done in.
the Democrats came out and called him a loser, right? Proven loser. They
I
called him.
Yeah.
didn't, want to.
I
Put
mean,
it
I
so
was hoping to
bluntly,
dedicate
but,
like 5 or 10 minutes to that whole. No,
Sure.
I'm joking.
So I actually wouldn't be surprised if Al doesn't climb up much from that. And there was a 16% undecided once you added up everyone in that race, and so people are going to be coming up. Tara's done well. Mary Peltola's done well. Of course, there's the inimitable Santa Claus, who has the best name ID.
Yeah,
of
this
any
is
of
probably
them.
anecdotal, but I've talked to at least probably 10 or 12 friends, maybe more even, who had just told me, yeah, I voted for the Santa guy. I don't know who to vote for. There's too many people.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's anecdotal or if that's going to be a trend we see here in the.
I've spoken to highly educated individuals who are like, you know what, Santa Claus is talking about
He's
some
the
of the
default.
things. Well, he's talking about some of the things that align with them, that that maybe don't win you general elections, but talking about principles and certain values that. So I think some people kind of did go that way.
Yeah, no, I saw the same thing when we polled. He was really very much a novelty vote. But then I started seeing stuff on Facebook and started seeing stuff on Twitter where people were pulling up his responses to the ADN questionnaire, and he gave really substantive responses to questions, and people kind of thought, actually, he's kind of cool.
Well, let's get Jason Gren up here. Hopefully, is your mic connected?
I think so.
We don't want to have the same.
I've done
same
this as
issue
many
either.
times as Ivan. I hope I can pull off a good mic.
Hey, Jason.
Hey.
Hey,
Good
how you
evening, guys.
doing? Good to see you.
guys. Yeah,
Good to see you.
always.
Jason, you're responsible for bringing this.
I'm not responsible.
This new
Voters are responsible for this. No, it's a fun night for us.
It is so cool. I gotta say, thank you very much. When you had those initial meetings, and I came along to a couple of them, but I thought this is a pipe dream. This is never going to happen in Alaska, right?
Well, I think
and
it's-
it did.
I think
and it
it's great
passed
that-
only narrowly, but it's very cool.
Well, I think it's great that your group has stuck around, and the division's doing some work too. But I think we see things happen in Alaska where something major changes, and then the people who support it just kind of step back and leave. But you guys have been very involved in educating voters and on this new system we have.
I'd say the month after the election came to pass, we won narrowly. That 1.5%. It was the group kind of said, "Hey, look, this is going to be a heavy lift. This is a big shift. This is going to take education." As great as the people at division elections are, and as smart as Alaskan voters are, it's going to need a third party. It's going to need volunteers. It's going to need supporters to really kind of do this. And we've been nonstop. I mean, even this past week, we were in Kenai, Palmer, Juneau. We've crisscrossed around the state. I've given 200-300 presentations to anyone with a microphone that'll have us to show just the nuts and bolts. How do you do this? What's going on? But even this week, I knew people still asking questions. Is it a vote one? What's going on? So we still have work to do. The time frame moving up so quickly was a challenge. But again, Alaskans are smart. I think for the most part get this.
It's not rocket science. I mean, let's face it.
The pick
it
one
isn't-
primary is pretty
I know.
straightforward.
The pick one and then
Yeah.
rank 4. And especially the fact that you're going to have the rank 4 in the special on the same day as the pick 1 in the regular.
That was
That's
again
the confusing
Yeah,
bit.
and
I don't know why the division or I guess it was the governor, but why did they schedule it? Maybe they wanted to save money, but
Yeah,
I think it should have been a separate election.
voter turnout, efficiency, save money, all those things. I mean, if you had election within a week of each other in August, I think turnout would just plummet.
Right.
You know, for one or the other. And now, at least, again, confusing, or maybe it takes that extra 3 or 4 steps to explain it. Having it on the same ballot, at least you can say 1 day, 1 ballot.
And, I think one I thought was a pretty unfair criticism is people said, "Oh, this new system, oh my God, it's so like it's this new, primary with this 48 people." Even in the old system, if someone died, there'd be a special election where everybody runs in the same election. The only difference is there'd be a top 2 runoff if nobody got half the vote.
Yeah, you could.
So it would still be a big primary with 48 people. It would just
the parties would have selected who ran for their party in that primary.
not if somebody if somebody dies, if there's a vacancy. It would have been a
vacancy.
special. So in this case, if the old system was in place and Don Young passed away, there would still be a single primary essentially.
And I think you're seeing the benefits of this. I mean, whatever pent up demand or people who just wanted to have fun and throw their name in the hat, or real serious contenders who this was the next step for them, or people who had been retired who want to come back. When I look at that ballot, I was really excited because it looks like Alaska. It really kind of like the diversity, the spectrum. It was just. It can be overwhelming for some people. The criticism I got often was there's too many good choices, which is a rare thing to say in an election. There's too many people I want to vote for. I don't know what to do. And it puts a little more pressure on voters, a little more responsibility on voters to maybe dig around, check social media, check the website, read a little bit more. But as voters, I mean, it's a powerful tool, and this gives you the chance to really have a nuance to your voice to say, instead of a Republican or a Democrat, now I get to pick from 10 of them, which reflects who I am in a better way. So we're excited. This is a great day, I think, for Alaskan voters. Obviously, this is 2.5 years in the works, and so it's a cool day for our organization and supporters. But I think for Alaskan voters, they're the big winners.
And the turnout so far has actually been higher than I think a lot of folks expected. I mean, it's already 25%. There's about 126,000 ballots that have been returned, but there's obviously more coming in. So by the time it's all said and done, we could be looking at, maybe 30% turnout.
Yeah, I think that's a big question. And when you go and look at what returns are, the numbers I looked at, maybe 24% are in right now. And then what trickles in from now, remember, it's whatever gets returned within 10 days. So ballots will trickle in. I mean, there's a lot of late voters. There's people who, like I said, I stopped by my mom's house today. I said, "Have you voted?" There's going to be people like that just to make sure. People that always plan on voting, but life kind of got in the way. We've had a great spring and early summer. So, but I think that we could get as high. I mean, I think we're probably shooting around 30% of a.
Ivan, that's pretty high for a kind of primary, a special weird.
Yeah, no, I think anytime you get up to that, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, the percentage. The denominator is the thing to look at, the total number, which you were saying was 570,000 registered
500,
voters,
well,
and there aren't even 570,000 people 18 plus in Alaska, let alone registered voters.
Jason, maybe you could answer this question. According to this, there was 507,000 ballots that went out in the mail.
Yeah.
But there's more registered voters. So we were asking earlier if we knew the answer
So
to that.
how many votes have you got, right? Because you've probably got something like 470,000 registered voters, would be my guess.
I think it's higher than that. No, I think it's 5.
You just haven't got the population, kind of like you've got.
I think this is like a rabbit hole debate that I don't know if we can accomplish this debate today.
Right.
Well, military people leave.
How long do we have? I guess today.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it looks to be probably the second or third highest in the last 12 years. That this primary, and some of those primaries had ballot initiatives that had a ton of money behind them.
The 2014, the Meade, Treadwell, Dan Sullivan, Joe Miller was a huge turnout.
Yeah, and I was at division elections today. I was shocked at how many people were still dropping ballots off today, 2:00 on a Saturday. I mean, there was traffic. I mean, there was people. It wasn't just one or two. I was there for 10 minutes, and there was 24 people who dropped off ballots today in the afternoon. So, to Matt's point, I think in the last 48 hours, we're going to see a big chunk too.
I pulled the primary votes. So, in 2020, the primary was 22.7%. 2018, 20.4. 2016, 17.2. 2014 had a huge turnout, nearly 40% in that turnout. 2012 was 25% in the primary. 2010 was 33. Obviously, you also have to look at presidential and non-presidential years. The people those make differences too, but they are primaries. 2008, 40%, 2006, 35%, and 2004, 28%. So in the last 20 years, I mean, there's been a few that have shot up pretty high, but in the 25, 27% range is not.
But given that this is a special,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's vote by mail. Everyone
deal.
received
Yeah.
a ballot. That might have it will have an impact.
I mean, according to the Alaska Division of Elections Twitter, the results are going to come out between 8:30 and 9 tonight, and they're going to keep counting through the 21st. They're going to do an update on June 15th, June 17th, and June 21st. So whatever we see tonight is going to be, that's it. And then there's going to be more as ballots come in. There's
Right.
going to be another update on the 15th.
it's not like the old days where it was an
Remember the
all-night all-night party.
the scrolling
because
screen?
you'd get updates
Refresh.
all the way through the night. Now it's just one and done, and then we go home.
If you love vote by mail or don't, I think a lot of people miss that election night central type of feeling.
Yeah, right.
But it is, from a voter standpoint, and that's what elections are for, really, or for voters, it is make it convenient and nice and make it, when you can do it, you can have your research, sit down for a few minutes, as opposed to feeling, I got to take time off work and I got to remember who I was going to vote for, call my wife and remind her and figure out how to watch kids and things like that. It is nice for voters, and so I'm not surprised to see a high turnout so far right now.
Put out there for the
Hey, I will
folks
say, look, on ranked choice voting, I don't think anyone thought that the primary was going to be the test of the strength of the system, right? The general election, the rank your system, and then also when do we get returns? I mean, we know that this fall there's going to be some challenges that are gonna come with this. So I don't disagree that for this today it seemed, I think people understood vote one was a big list, and I think people understood it, but I will say that there is going to, I think you guys have a lot of work to do. Left to do. Yeah.
Like I said, I've given 250 presentations. Our team has been around the state. When we talk about the primary, people get it. It's not rocket.
Sure.
You pick one, you find your candidate you like. When we get to the next part of the election, we say, okay, the next part, in the general election, ranked choice voting, people take out their notepads and they kind of, because they want to learn, but it takes that light bulb moment. You do have to explain it. And that's why we do mock elections. That mock election, kind of a fun election online or in person with beers, things like that. That's one of those moments where you can see in the room people go, because I did it real life. I did it in person. I kind of, I could kind of wrap my brain around it. It is something that takes that 2 or 3 minutes extra to kind of figure out the process.
Let me ask you a question. 4 is a genius number. Where did 4 come from?
Well, there's other jurisdictions that use 5, and there's other jurisdictions that use unlimited. New York City had the mayor's race this last summer. They had 36 candidates.
And they just ranked.
And you could just go 1 through 36 if you wanted to. I don't know if there was a soul in New York who ranked all 36. Maybe there was.
Well, I mean, a lot of this came from, I read that book by that Catherine Jell and Michael Porter, the politics industry. This kind of came from a book these two wrote about the system, the voting system, and then also the congressional system with all how messed up things have gotten over the decades. But this came from.
How did you guys choose?
So in that book, they advocate for a top 5, and I think there was a little bit of looking at other data, looking at other places, other jurisdictions that use ranked choice voting. The average is about 2.5, 3, what people will rank on a ballot, regardless of how many, if there's 10 or 12 or 36. And so, given some of our history with independents, third party, write-ins, things like that, it was, I think, there's a little bit of a guessing game, but also based in data to go with 4. 3 seems too little. Why would you even have ranked choice if you could? That's, but 5 might be too many, or 6 might be too many. So
no, I think 4 is spot on, especially because it's even. So there's the potential for 2 on one side of the spectrum, 2 on the other side of the spectrum. I mean, this is Alaska, so it may well be 3 on the Republican side, 3 on the right side, 1 on the left side, but it gives enough space to get representation from across the spectrum, right? Which is important.
And I think you see the criticism in Washington, California, they have the top 2 system. And oftentimes you see just 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans.
Well, if it was 2 here, it would have been Palin and Begich.
Sure.
And that, with all due respect to the 2 of them, doesn't give you much choice.
Well, it doesn't reflect even Alaskan voters. I mean, even if you break it down into percentages for parties, we have such a huge number of nonpartisan and independent voters. we like to vote for people, not the name, and so this allows for that more choice. Well, again,
guys, I'm gonna-
they got to learn the system, and we got to keep educating people on how to fill in those bubbles.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you here only because we have somebody on Zoom who's a really good buddy of yours that we're gonna. Who do you think it is? Who's running? Who's a good buddy of yours?
I have a few. I will guess. Adam Wool.
That's Adam Wool. We have Adam Wool,
he
who's on the
texted me today.
Who's
He
on the
said
East Coast, actually.
He's going to try to zoom in. He said.
Adam, where are you? You're on the East Coast.
I am. I'm in Massachusetts.
Well, are you watching? Are you staying up, waiting for the results to come out?
Well, I'm up, so yes, I will. I will stay up for another whatever.
I mean, it's what? It's probably
the first.
12:30 there. So,
Tranche.
so you're running in the special election and the general, and you're not seeking re-election to your House seat. And of all the 59 House or legislative races, your seat is the only one with more than 4 people right now. There's 5 candidates, and one of them is your staffer, Ashley Carrick. But that's kind of just interesting that that's the only of the 59 races, only one race has more than 4 people, and that's your seat.
I got big shoes to fill, Jeff.
That's true. I mean, there's no debate. So you have the kind of famous vote Wool, no bull, and you've been elected in Fairbanks for this is your fourth term.
Yeah, 8 years.
So how do you feel about what's going to be happening here tonight with these results?
Well, I'm looking forward to see how it pans out. I'm obviously hoping I do well, and I think it's going to be a surprise to everyone. I mean, you guys, Jeff, and others in that room and around the state are more involved in this maybe and more entrenched, and who can predict really what's going to happen right now? I'm curious. Does anyone really know who the top 4 are going to be, or the top 5 or the top 6? So I think it's going to be a surprise to everyone, and I'm looking forward to that.
Jason, you got anything for your buddy there?
No, I mean, I agree. I'm actually, from just a voter in Alaska, I'm interested who's going to be 5th, 6th, and 7th. You were talking to Tar earlier and others. I think, I was told on election night is when you want to be at the top of the mountain. If you're at the top of the mountain a week ahead of time, that doesn't matter. You want to be at the top of the mountain on election night, when you vote in person, anyways. But who's gaining momentum? Who's kind of getting towards that 5th and 6th, went from 0 to
That's the
6th,
thing.
7th?
With 4 people, it's such a
it is.
fine line.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, I've got a question for you. I was asked over and over again, and I didn't have an answer for it, whether ranked choice voting changed the way you campaigned. Did you think differently during the course of your campaign than you had thought in prior ones?
Well, this campaign was so different than any other that I've been in, with me plus 47. So, to be honest, I didn't campaign that differently. I didn't try to go after anybody, and so, which is kind of my style anyways. I don't really, even when I've had 1 or 2 opponents, I try not to focus on them. I try to focus on me. But maybe if and when I make it to the final 4, then my campaign style will be influenced by ranked choice voting. But right now, with 1 out of 48, I didn't really change my style that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think to the broader question, it's what was the strategy heading into a top 4 primary? And it's with 48, I think you'll see most candidates went for, quickly trying to build out their teams. And Adam would love to hear what that looks like, quickly building your teams, bringing people on, starting to do your outreach, doing your fund. You got to quickly start raising money in order to start spending it. You got to build your name recognition. I think across the board, that's where most people spent their time. It was, hey, we got to get as many of our likable people out, people that like us out to vote for us. And as we said earlier with Tara, there are a lot of votes still on the table. I mean, it was who could reach into their pockets of votes, the people that know them, and everyone has these sort of built-in constituencies in some ways that they were trying to reach down into. Mm-hmm. So Adam, can you talk, I'm curious what your, kind of where your campaign focused its time, who'd you guys target, who are you trying to get out to the polls to get you as many votes as possible?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty open about it in that I've been focused on my region, Fairbanks, and where I've lived for 40 years and owned a business for 25 or 30 of those years. and I reached out to people that have voted for me in the past, people that know me in the past. I focused in on my region, to be honest with you. I reached out a little bit to Fairbanks and Juneau, where I've worked in Juneau for 8 years, and I know a lot of people in Anchorage as well. But my base is Fairbanks, and there wasn't a lot of competition in the Fairbanks area as far as candidates. John Coghill, a guy I respect and like a lot, was from Fairbanks, but he's on the other side of the political spectrum as I. And I guess Santa Claus is from Fairbanks or North Pole.
Don't forget about Santa.
They're splitting the North Pole vote.
Yeah, John Coghill and Santa Claus share a lot of constituents, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Santa Claus goes way past North Pole, but yeah, Santa Claus is from Fairbanks, but I think his appeal is not regional. My appeal is regional, and if I can get a bunch of people in Fairbanks that have known me for decades and voted for me for close to a decade, that was my focus, and I looked at the numbers and sort of analyzed it that way.
Well, that's the thing with 126, and it's going to jump up, but a lot of people are going to divide. 30 or 40 people are going to divide some votes, and then some people are. You could, with 10,000 votes or 12,000 votes, that might be enough for the.
Everyone's been looking for the magic number, and just some back of paper math. If there's 150,000 ballots cast, and all 48 candidates poll 0.5%, you're throwing out 36,000 votes, right? So like, if 48 candidates get 0.5%, everyone, that's 36,000 votes. So then you shrink the total. Then people are really fighting for the 120,000 votes that are out there. So it's an interesting way. Everyone's asking. Well, particularly if you're thinking about, are you fourth or third? What's that magic number? Is it 10,000? Is it 15,000? I feel like 15,000 is somewhere around there where you can.
Here's the deal: is that everyone is not getting 0.5% of the vote.
Sure,
But in the poll that we did, I was actually very interested because, like I said, in answer to your question earlier on, we did it online. So we listed all 48 people, right? And we rotated the names so that they appeared for everyone online in different orders, just like ballots are done, right? And I actually thought to myself, okay, out of the 600 people who are doing this poll, like outside of the 12, I hate to say, credible candidates, but the well-known candidates, right? Who else is going to get votes? And the answer to that was not a lot of them. There were a few votes for the Libertarian. John Wayne Howe, I think, was one who got a few votes. J.R. Myers got a few votes. LaDonna Duchess, or
Lady
whatever,
Donna Duchess.
Lady Donna, that's the one. She got a vote or two, probably just because people liked her name.
Yeah.
And then there were like 3 or 4 or 5 others, but 30 of them didn't get any votes at all out of 300, out of 600.
Well, I want to thank Adam for I want to thank you for coming on, Adam, and best of luck to you tonight. I know it's late where you are, but thanks for coming on the show. And it's always been, the last 4 years in June, I really enjoyed hanging out with you and seeing you down there. So we're gonna miss you.
Great. Thanks being on, and great being on the show tonight, and we'll see what happens.
Thanks, Adam. Best of luck to you.
Thanks.
And then, folks, now we actually have Nick Begich in studio, so we're gonna. Jason, thank you for coming on here. We appreciate your insight.
Don't mind at all.
We're gonna
Appreciate it a
boot
lot.
you, but we
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming on here. And like I said, I think it's really appreciated by a lot of folks that you guys stuck around and are doing the education part of this new system.
And I'll say, just from shameless plug, and to Matt's point too, we're still working all summer. We have a lot of work to do. We know we have lots of we have some time, and the whole system changes again up to the August election. It'll change again for the November election. But everywhere we go, every group we work with, people start getting it, and our goal is by those election dates, people will understand and really see the great positive impacts of the system. And if people need help, if people have questions, feel free to reach out to our team, and we're happy to help.
Alaskans for Better Elections.com.
There it is.
Right? One of our sponsors, actually.
There we go.
Really
Get the word
appreciate
out.
that.
We actually asked in a poll a little while ago whether people thought ranked choice voting was a good thing or a bad thing, and the slightly more people said good thing. Going to ask it again, and I'm pretty much expecting it to grow, particularly as we move through this first effort. I think people will like it. I think people will end up really liking it, and it's here to stay.
And I think that the education process helps. Obviously, if you're confused and you don't know how to use it, you won't like it.
Right.
You don't want to go to the ballot booth and figure out, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. So it like I said, it goes hand in hand, and we're committed to keep working with Alaskans about this and look forward to more chats and more education process. So thanks for having me.
again, Jason,
Yeah,
for coming
thanks
on.
guys.
Appreciate
Good
it.
to see you.
Jason Grannon, former legislator, and now running the Alaskans for Better Elections. And we're gonna get the mic switched out there with our team. But we got Nick Begich here in studio, and folks, the Division of Elections said around 8:30 or 9, and I just refreshed, and so far there's still not results up. And in the past, it's usually been closer to the latter end of the estimation than the shorter end. So we'll hopefully have these results up pretty soon. And again, it's going to be a one-shot deal tonight. We're going to see where everybody is, and I think we're going to have a couple people that are going to be clearly in the top 4, and then we'll see what happens with how the votes allocate to the other candidates, and you know where we're going to be at with how close some of these races are. I mean, candidates are going to be. Matt, what do you predict? I think 2 or 3 people might be really, really close.
You know, Jeff, it's funny. We haven't. I don't know if you do predictions on this show or if we.
Wait. I mean, earlier we predicted. We always do the predictions for all these races every year. So we said Palin, obviously.
If you're doing predictions, I'm leaving.
That's probably a good. We're always pretty good, except one time years ago in 2018 we predicted Culver over Rauscher, and boy did we miss that one.
Yeah.
Like that was real bad. I mean, Rauscher got way more than half the vote, but. Yeah, I mean, I think Palin's obviously very well known. Everybody knows her. Nick Begich, who's here, who's going to be on in a second. Been campaigning for a while.
I was talking to some people, and it's tough. I've always kind of said it's kind of a race of 6. There's kind of 6 stronger candidates. So it's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, I think Nick Begich will advance. I think Sarah Palin will advance. I think Tara probably has a good shot to advance, and then. On the kind of the center left, where does it go? I mean, is it Al Gross that has a lot of money, has been spending a lot of money on digital and outreach? Is it a Mary Peltola? Is it a Chris Constant? Is it a Santa Claus? It's just time will tell. And when there's time, we can go in and look at where folks have dedicated their campaign resources. The spending tells a lot. Some people. But I know we have a candidate. Yeah.
Let's get Nick Begich up here. In the hot seat. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Really
Thanks
appreciate
for having
that.
me.
Good to see you. Have a seat.
Good to see
All
you.
right.
Hello, stranger.
How you been?
I've been good.
Good.
So we've been talking about you a lot. You filed to run against Young, and then he passed away unfortunately, and then everybody just popped in. So
It
what
was a mad rush.
What was that? I mean, you were kind of the alternative, and then all of a sudden now it's crazy.
Well, I think it's interesting. All it takes is $100. Go down to the Division of Elections. Anybody can file with $100, and I think for a lot of people, this was maybe a career opportunity or an aspiration that they'd had, and maybe they didn't feel comfortable taking on someone as strong as Don Young. But I think we see sort of that latent desire for people to run, and we have now 48 candidates in this race. Well, for another 15 minutes or so. And
we'll know pretty soon. Yeah, we're checking.
Interesting point. One of the things I was thinking earlier was whether or not ranked choice voting had anything to do with how many candidates there were, or whether it was just the natural interest of the special election to replace Don Young, right? And one of the really interesting things to do, which I haven't done yet, but I've been meaning to, is to look at all the people who have filed for state offices, House and Senate this year, and see how many the average is, right? And whether it's up from previous years notably, whether ranked choice voting is attracting more people, which is one of the selling points for it, right?
I think that's a great point. I think that probably factors into why we saw so many people jump into the race, was because under ranked choice voting, this being the very first election, I think a lot of people thought, well, hey, maybe I have a shot.
Right. It's not going to be bought by the big money people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely the top 4 element of ranked choice. I think a lot of people's thoughts were, if we can just advance, it's such a short window. It's, can I advance, and can I then have an opportunity to tell my story? And I will say candidly, there's not been a lot of discussion on policy. There's not been a lot of discussion on vision or how you'll vote, simply because in many ways there hasn't been time. I mean, most people have been focused on name ID, name rec, standing up their campaigns, and just doing the kind of the bare nuts and bolts of an early day campaign because that window's so short. I mean, I think you had a little bit of the virtue of the early start. Nick and I were kind of on both sides of this. I was on the consulting side of the congressman's office. I've known Nick for a long time as well. So, as in politics, that's the way it goes. But now you're up in a field of 48. You had a bit of a head start, and I think it gives you the ability to start talking issues. Whereas I think some candidates are still being forced to be scrambling for name ID, doing basic mailers just to get votes out there.
Nick, how challenging has it been? Your grandfather was the congressman. Obviously, Mark Begich was a senator and mayor. Tom Begich is a senator. They're Democrats. I mean, has that been? I think a lot of people hear the name Begich and they think Democrat.
Have you been getting lots of family help?
You have a much different background than them. So
Yeah.
it's how challenging has it been to kind of get that?
Well, it's pretty challenging, I will say. We were out in the valley. We have huge support. We were in the Colony Days parade, but there's still some folks out there that are surprised there's an election going on, which is surprising to me, but nevertheless. But B, they just haven't had, to your point, Matt, the time to really drill down on all the candidates and understand them individually. And I think that is one of the sort of unexpected byproducts of one of the provisions of this ranked choice voting system that we have.
It's a really interesting thing. One of the things that interests me about ranked choice voting is how potentially unstable it is. The equilibrium can be knocked off to create a situation where you get 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's say, like everyone has been saying, it's Palin, it's you, it's Gross, and then it's a fourth place. Let's say it's Santa. So Santa gets in fourth place. Then you campaign until August. And when we did the 4-person race ranked choice, Santa got eliminated first. Then there's 3 of you. Sarah Palin got eliminated next, and it's you against Gross, and you won. But
That's pretty good.
if
I like it.
if you mean, if you had a situation where Gross came down a little bit and Santa picked up a little bit of his vote, let's say by the Democratic Party smacking Gross, and then Santa comes up, then Gross gets eliminated first. 3/4 of his vote goes to Santa. He's in first in the 3-way race, and then let's say, God forbid, that Sarah Palin smacked you and created that, then it's a Sarah against Santa final, and the data that we had showed that as of May 6th to 9th, Santa would win that. So you have this situation where someone can kind of creep into fourth,
Wow.
but then win the thing at the end.
Well, that is
if
part
the
of the challenge.
stars
Yeah, go
are
ahead.
aligned.
And I think there's going to be a big, and this has happened in other places that use ranked choice voting. There's a drop off. Somebody votes for one person, and that's their person, and then they start to recalculate, and then the threshold to win is actually less than 50%.
Yeah.
Because of the drop. I mean, Matt, we've talked about that before on this drop off. So we don't know what it's going to be, but it could be quite high. In a race like this, I think it's going to be maybe not as high because it's so high profile. But
I think the general rule of thumb is if there's someone who is kind of built ideologically similar to a candidate, then you're willing to go and vote down those candidates. So if there's someone else in the race that kind of is your flavor, if you're a conservative, someone that is a fellow Republican, then you're willing to go down and vote them 1 and 2. But the data also says that you're not willing to jump across and vote if you're a Republican, vote for the Democrat. So there will be a significant drop off.
so what's like for you in your mind the strategy of
Well,
4 people?
Yeah, I think that presuming it's going to be me and Sarah Palin, right, in that top 4 from the right, it's going to be let's get on the record on issues. And I think that's, to Matt's point, we saw Sarah Palin dodging debate after debate. She was invited to 5, she went to 2. And she clearly is not comfortable talking about the issue. She's clearly not comfortable entering a debate and a dialogue of that nature. And so I think the strategy is going to be, hey, let's go. Let's get on the record. Let's start talking. Let's start talking about the issues, and let's start helping the voter understand the differences between the candidates.
Well, it's going to be obviously much different dynamic with 4 instead of 48, right? I mean, you're going to have, if somebody doesn't go to a debate or doesn't show up to something, that's going to be a lot more visible than when it's 48 people and maybe 5 or 10 people show up. But really, it's kind of everybody realizes there's just this kind of crazy race going on.
That's right. You get an opportunity to really focus the field and focus the attention.
Now, also, we talked with Tara earlier about this, Tara Sweeney. So you're going to be running presuming you make it to the top 4 in this special general, but also in a primary.
Which is
That's
different
right.
from the general special.
on the same ballot,
Simultaneously,
in the,
yes.
the regular
Yes.
regular primary. So that's going to be a whole different, I guess, dynamic.
It'll be an interesting dynamic because if there's other candidates that choose to continue to run who did not make
That's
this
the
Final
thing.
Four, that's going to be a little confusing for
I
voters.
think one of the things that's easiest to predict is that the Final Four in the special will be the same as the Final Four later on, because it's going to be so. If you can't get into the top 4 in the first go around, how are you going to do it on the second
Well,
go around?
unless it's a Santa character, because he's not running in the regular.
No,
He's just running in the-
the lineup will be somewhat different, but most of the people, aside from Santa and Andrew Halcrow, have filed.
Yeah, most
I
have,
haven't
yeah.
checked. Yeah,
I think there's
but
31
yeah.
in the regular election.
but you think about it. The
48,
Final
yeah.
Four in the special is going to be campaigning all the way through August, and they're going to have the Final Four ranked choice vote on primary day, and on the same day you get the pick one for the real thing, and those 4 are obviously going to dominate it much more than the first time around. So actually, this is where the decision gets made for the Final Four, not in August.
And I think another interesting thing that actually Brad Keithley pointed out in a column he wrote a few weeks ago or a month ago, and Don Young happened to do this when he won, when your grandfather passed away. Whoever wins the special, if they go on to win the general, they actually get a bump in seniority over
right.
everybody else elected this year in
That's
the regular.
right.
So that happened with Don Young, and that apparently over the years that made a difference.
It absolutely will, and I think Alaskans are going to weigh that actually in terms of how they see the results of this election going into the regular election. That will be a factor people will be talking about.
Yeah, I think that there's people saying that there's estimates as high as 50 new members of Congress in the United States House of Representatives. So of 435, 50 new members, that would give the winner of the special election an inherent advantage, that they would have seniority over their 50 fellow members. And that matters when it comes. It really used to matter more when seniority was the real stickler of how you became a committee chair. But now there's votes and there's things like that. So it will make a difference. I don't know if it's going to be if it's going to be a savior or any sort of issue, but it will make a difference. You will have a distinct advantage. You'll have that advantage of being there. It'll make advantage of your office space, your office selection, maybe your committee selection, things like that.
I guess, Nick, last thing, it's been a really busy last several months for you. You've been, we were on the plane once from Juneau. You were in Petersburg for the Norwegian Festival.
Yep.
I see you there all over the state. What's it been? It must just be nonstop the last several months.
It's been nonstop, since the day we got in the race until today. I don't recall ever having taken a day off. We are out on the trail every single day because at the end of the day, one thing that I know about Alaska is you got to meet Alaskans where they are.
Yeah.
And this is a big state. It's almost several states jammed into one. Some would even argue multiple countries into one. And so you've really got to be able to reach the people where they are, shake hands, hear the issues, and be able to reflect those issues down in D.C. when you're there in a knowledgeable way.
Yeah, and I went and looked through, and it's not just you, I looked through most of the candidates we'll talk about tonight's disclosures, and one thing that stands out is you have a lot of travel. It's a lot of Alaska Airlines. They should write you a kickback on
You
that.
should become an ambassador or something.
But there's that, and then and I asked this respectfully. It looks like you guys have begun to cut some of your, and this is strategically sounds right. You're beginning to plan for advancing. That you're placing looks like you've done some media production. That you're looking at some of your buys. It sounds like you're prepared to advance this evening, and that you're going to come and you're going to turn the corner pretty quick. That, according to your disclosure, like you've kind of been preparing to advance and really going to turn it on.
That's the intent. I think any candidate that is working hard and expects to advance needs to be thinking in the same way.
Yeah.
You don't pause because there's only 60, 65 days between today and August 16th, whatever that number is, right? It's not much.
Yeah.
And you need to be prepared to move quickly.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Nick? How did you convince Matsu Republicans that you weren't like your uncle?
They've known me for a long time, so it wasn't immediate. I've gotten to know these folks through my work on the board at MTA for the last 5 years. I've gotten to know them through just regular Republican politics that we've been doing. I was the Republican Finance Committee co-chair for the state of Alaska. And so we met one another over the years, the Alaska Policy Forum board president. So,
Don Young's co-chair in 2020.
And Don Young's co-chair in 2020. And that was big. That
Yeah.
was big. That was an opportunity not just in the Mat-Su,
Sure.
but really in Southeast Alaska, Fairbanks,
Yeah.
other areas that maybe I wouldn't have touched normally. That was a great opportunity to meet a lot of
I'll
people.
say, we had a lot of people, when I was doing Don Young stuff, they're like, we haven't talked to Don Young's people in a long time. And I was like, you just talked to Nick like 3 months ago. He was the co-chair guy. So anyway, that's my polite little dig at you today.
you go.
But hey,
That's
no, I mean,
all good.
all water on the bridge there.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on, Nick. We appreciate it. Best of luck to you. We're going to be checking the results. I'm sure you will too. So far, there's still no results posted, but it's 8:45, 8:50. So hopefully, pretty soon we're going to have these only round of results tonight. So
Thanks for
again,
having me.
Thanks for
Yeah,
coming on, Nick.
appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Appreciate
Yep.
it.
Hey, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks.
Take care.
Good luck.
Take care, everybody. Good to
And we
see
also
See you too.
thanks again for coming on, Nick. We'll see you out there.
All right, sounds good.
We also, is he still on there, Scott? We had Chris Constant. Okay, he's getting lined up on the Zoom. Oh, I think we got the mic. There we go. Thank you, Carolyn.
Hot mic.
Hot mic. He's gonna go in the car and he's those motherfuckers.
Put it in the chat.
One time, it's actually funny. Mark Begich, when he ran for governor, he filed at the Division of Elections in 2018 outside, and the Channel 2 people were there. There was a little press conference afterwards, and he's mic'd up, and he gets in his car with his campaign people. They're driving away, and the Channel 2 guy goes, "Oh shit, he's got the mic on. You can still hear him." And he runs over there, and I said, "Man, that's when you follow the guy, and that's the real content."
Yeah. Well, hey, Jeff, if we could just for a brief moment, I think just a little bit of this is an interesting time to be the special election. I mean, it's just kind of fitting that we're having a special election to replace Don Young, who wins this seat in 1973 in a special election. So, I just wanted to take a brief moment to just acknowledge, the passing of Congressman Young. It would have been his 89th birthday 2 days ago,
Right.
June 9th. He was born in 1933.
Heck, you just reminded me, my birthday is June 9th too. So I
Okay.
share a birthday with
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, there you go. My sister does as well, so it's always easy for me to remember. And like I said, I had the distinct opportunity to work for Congressman Young, and he had asked me to come in and do some campaign stuff for him. He was focused on running. We had cut some ads. He was ready to go. He was energized. But I'll say this: I think he would have liked to see that it be kind of this jump ball, kind of everyone gets in. A lot of people have been talking about running for this seat for many years, and I think there's a part of him that is okay with it being so competitive, so many people. So
We all have a Don Young story, and I moved here in 2004. Ivan, you've been here longer than that.
So question for you, Matt. What would Don Young have thought about potentially Santa Claus replacing him, albeit briefly? Do you think his sense of humor would have just allowed him to have a chuckle about that and figure it was perhaps appropriate?
I mean, I think there probably would have been a socialist joke of some sort, or something of the sort. But the congressman had a great sense of humor. He knew Santa Claus when he served on the North Pole City Council, so they knew him well. So, I just said this is a very fitting day in some ways that we're going to begin the process to replace Congressman Young. A seat that he won, like I said, in a similar fashion with the passing of Nick Begich in the tragic plane crash, which is a unique story in and of itself. The majority leader of the House, Hale Boggs, is on that plane, and it set off this whole process. And famously, Don Young loses that race to Nick Begich, who is no longer alive, by 10,000 votes.
And also Emil Nadi's running now, and he was running in that race back in '73. So
Emil Nadi goes on. They go to this convention. Don Young tells a story that he was kind of this sacrificial lamb when he was running against Nick Begich. And then when he was running for this open seat, they wanted to say, like, oh, maybe we put up a better candidate. And it was actually John Coghill's dad that fought for him. He was heavily involved in Republican politics. So
let's we got Chris Constant here on the Zoom link. Let's get him brought up here. And how you doing, Chris?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. We had Adam Wool on earlier, and Nick Begich. I don't know if you've been watching Tara Sweeney, so we've got a kind of the spectrum here. You got in the race when Don Young was, you filed as a Democrat when Don Young was still alive, and then we were talking to Nick about that. Then he passes away, and it's just like a free, all these people. So maybe first talk a little bit about kind of the dynamic of how this race has really changed a lot since the passing of Don Young.
When I met with Don back in February, we had a really amazing conversation about the race. and what it was going to be about. And both he and I agreed that it was going to be a race on the issues and about Alaska. And he definitely had some things to say about the other guy that was running against him, and that he definitely didn't want to see him win because of the experience that he had had with him over the last several months. And so I thought that was a very interesting conversation. My whole plan at the time was just to celebrate the accomplishments of a congressman who'd served for nearly 50 years, and then talk about what the next 50 years have to do. Ironically, we had just finalized our campaign strategy March 18th at noon, and 4 hours later, my phone exploded, and that was the sad day we learned Congressman Young had passed. So our plan was finalized for 4 hours when we had to completely reboot it. And now we found ourselves running a completely different race in an environment that is absolutely unpredictable and that provided a number of challenges that no one could have ever imagined. And so it was a roller coaster, kind of a roller coaster in the dark.
There's been quite a bit of competition amongst the Democrats in the race, but of all the Democrats, you're on the Assembly, you're the vice chair, you're in the news a lot, in the media a lot. I mean, what are your thoughts here? I mean, it's more Republican voters in Alaska than Democrats, but there's also a lot of undeclared nonpartisan voters. So,
yeah, my guess is as good as yours or anyone else's what's going to actually happen, because nobody can tell where the votes hit or how they hit. And I'm really excited to see the returns and learn how this new system is going to work. We ran the race that we wanted to as much as we could. Of course, would have been nice if we could have loaned ourselves, $750,000 or, had an endless personal bank account that we could run from. But what we did with our finances was we reached as hard as we could into the communities that we know votes are going to come from us, which is based on who knows me and the work that we've done combating the pandemic and facing the extremism over the last 2 years.
Ivan, Matt, you guys.
Yeah, I would say, hey, Chris, good to see you. What's been your biggest struggle? Like I said, I've come at this from a little bit of the data side. I looked through people's disclosures. I looked at what people have done on digital side. Where have they spent their resources? What's been a big challenge for you in this race when it comes to fundraising or contacting voters, those sort of things, given this short window? And it's really tough, I would say.
Yeah, before April 1st and really before March 18th, we were aggressively raising money. In fact, as a lowly Anchorage Assemblyman, I raised more for this race so far than I raised in all of my campaigns previously. But obviously in a race of this scale, that's not enough. And so we have to continue being aggressive, raise more money. And the challenge that came up is once you had a couple more Democrats, and one really in particular, and one independent who, was not going to caucus with the Democrats, was going to caucus with the Democrats, was going to caucus with nobody, and then was going to caucus with whoever wins, and then finally he's a Democrat again. That issue provided a really big challenge because people who are my base started to ask, are you the right person? And they had to answer that question for themselves. And so that, I think, was the biggest challenge, is people who were generally in support kind of going, wait a minute, now what do we do? Because people want to support an Alaska Native woman. People want to support the person that they had supported before. And so I think that I would say is the biggest challenge. But really, we played our game. We played it on our terms, and we played as hard as we could. We'll see what happens.
Chris, I want to just let you know we just got the results in, but it's only 48,000 votes. So I want to just go over these real quick while we're here. We'll keep you on here. But if Scott wants to pull that up, I'm just looking at this for the first time. It looks like Nick Begich with 17%, 8,300 votes. Santa Claus only 5%, 2,400 votes. Al Gross 7,200 votes, 14.9%. Wow, Sarah Palin 33%.
Wow.
And Mary Peltola 7.89%. This is only 48,000 votes, so this is actually not even half of the votes that we've seen that have been turned in. So this could, change quite a bit. Yeah, well, let's go through these here. So 17% Nick Begich. So I guess that's one so far. Let's pull this up. So it's one.
Al Gross at 15%.
Al Gross at 15. So who's the fourth? Peltola, I guess.
Palin at 33 and
Peltola at 7.89%. Where's Sweeney?
She's at 3.29, 1,600 votes.
Yeah, and again, this is only 48,000 votes. So we've seen according to the division, 126,000 votes. So
Andrew Hellcroft, 400, less than 1%.
yeah, some of these surprising.
Less than 1%.
Yeah, Revac only 1.6%. Sweeney 3.29%, so about double Revac. A lot of these people are just, look at like basically insignificant, 0.01, 0.04, 0.02. Some of these people.
But the important thing, Peltola, 7%, so she's getting the 4th place
Now, again,
on these numbers.
and again, this is 48,000 votes. There's still, 126, 80. I mean, there's still a lot of votes, and I don't know if we're gonna.
Yeah, there's arguably there's at least we know there's 80,000 votes at least, right? That the division reported receiving 125,000 ballots back as of last night at 5:30 p.m. So there's approximately 80,000, 80,000 votes remaining, 78,000.
I think the interesting one though is Palin. Wow, 16,000. I mean, this
that's
is
a lot.
this is
But
a
then
third of the vote.
You don't know where this vote is from.
Well, that's like an old saying we use on the campaign trail, but you're right, we don't know. I don't know if because they don't sort vote by mail by precinct.
Right.
And so we don't really, now you can go back and you can look, in the after action report, you can go look at the
Sure.
voter file, it's way complicated.
Yep, you're right.
But we
It's
don't
not-
really
it's not,
get the
it's not
precinct
like
data.
the old days.
Now it's saying not found. Are you guys seeing that, Scott? Are you guys seeing the?
Did you?
I think we might have crashed the.
Wow.
If you refresh it, it's saying link now.
I'm assuming,
We might have crashed it. Scott said he's not going to refresh it, so
I won't refresh
Are
it
you seeing
either.
the same? Yeah, I can't see it now. Damn it.
but there's, this
Is Crystal on?
This is that numbers game where we were talking about, which is, it's safe to say that regardless of what happens, that Sarah Palin is obviously going to advance, right?
Oh, at this point, and Begich too. With
and I think
7.
Yeah.
Let's bring Chris on real quick, and sorry to cut you off there, Chris. If you're still on the Zoom link.
It happens. Math is math. We'll see what happens. It looks like Mary had a better night than I did, and looking forward to seeing where the numbers go.
Well, thanks for coming on, Chris. Appreciate it, and you've been out there working hard. So we'll be seeing you at the assembly meetings. Absolutely, I'm always over there. So thanks again. That's Chris Constant, one of the candidates in the race. So
I kind of feel bad. I kind of forgot he was still on the line with us. So
yeah, well,
sorry about that.
we're here to. I mean, this is the adult adult club or situation here with this race.
Yeah, so I don't know why it would be such a small chunk, because, as you say, 120 whatever it is thousand supposedly received.
I mean, they received.
And so presumably this is the vote that came in up until a week ago, and they've been counting it for the last week.
But even in the past, with like early votes or whatever, they would usually only tabulate them. The results on Tuesday would be through the previous Thursday or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
So this is probably that, but this seems pretty low. I was expecting it to be
I
a
imagine
lot higher than 48,000.
I think so. The division gets these ballots back. They run them through a machine. They scan them. They're in the door, but they're not removed from the security sleeve. They're not tabulated. So it appears that they went through the 40.
Someone just told me they counted through 6/1.
Okay.
So this is only through
Wow.
almost 2 weeks ago,
Right.
10 days ago.
Yeah.
And then all the in-person ballots that were scanned, I just heard.
So this is where, to Ivan's point, this is
Well,
where
what the hell?
you can start to hypothesize,
About who's going to have done better later.
whose campaign had an early push. So, Sarah Palin, who has obvious name recognition, Nick Begich, who had an early run at a campaign. So those numbers.
Well, I think if you couch it that way, I think it's all over, because Mary Peltola was 7 point whatever she was, and then the next one down from that was Santa with 5. Santa's Mary's thing was she was the least known in the poll. She finished her political career in 2008, I believe. So she's been out of office for 14 years.
And she had a different name
And
back
she had a
then, too.
different name
So,
back
yeah.
then, too. And I was amazed by how much of the people who knew who she was were voting for her in the poll. So I knew that she was strong. And if anyone's coming up in the later vote compared with the earlier vote, it's her. And so I think it.
Let's go through it again now, folks. Again, this is only 48,000 ballots. I guess
Yeah.
I was just told through June 1st, so there's at least another 80,000 ballots, or likely more out there, because we only have the numbers. We have 126,000 through 610. But Nick Begich was
Santa Claus
17%.
Cog Hill did well. with
Cog
just
Hill
under
did. See, and
4%.
I actually said that. I said I think a lot of people aren't really talking about Cog Hill, but very big name in Fairbanks.
Yeah.
Al Gross here with 15%.
Yep.
A little bit less than Begich.
Ended up okay.
A lot of
You
these
know,
people
Jeff
are just-
Lowenfels, interesting one, and also Halcrow up the top. I was actually surprised that Halcrow didn't get any more traction than that.
He really
because
didn't campaign much, though.
The interesting thing was
I don't think he spent much money either.
we ran positive negatives on all the people in the race, and Jeff Lowenfels and Andrew Halcrow had the highest positives of anyone, but they were not converting it to vote.
Let's go back down,
because
Scott,
they're
to Palin.
like the non-political candidates.
And again, this is just over 48,000 votes, so there's a lot more votes to tabulate. But look at that.
But that's
33,
just
that's I mean,
huge.
that's a third of the freaking vote. I mean, out of that's what I had said 30% before, so it's even more than 30%. Thank you, Scott. Someone just told me how smart I am. I think they were joking.
But yeah, Mary, almost 8%. I don't think that's going anywhere.
That's probably not gonna.
That,
I can't imagine that
because
goes
you've only
down.
got Santa behind anywhere close.
So,
Tara
Jeff,
Sweeney 3,
just
Adam
we're,
Wolf 3.
we're getting some folks writing in saying, so to clarify, this is the only votes we're getting this evening. This is the
I was told by the division they said there's going to be one
count release
count
this
tonight,
evening.
and then
it goes up until they've counted up until June 1st, according to the information you've received.
well, here's their Twitter. We'll be releasing some unofficial results tonight. We'll continue reviewing and counting through 6/21. We'll release updated results on June 15th, June 17th, and June 21st.
Yeah,
Which means that's
and
enough
this
for 4 days for the next.
this has always been a little bit. I mean, this was a question in November 2020 where we're like, who's picking the kind of the selectivity of when things are released? I know people were anxiously waiting, and it felt like, you know, when are things getting released, and do they have the ability? And it almost, no criticism of the division and the folks there, but I think voters do ask this question, like, did you have the ability to release more tonight? Probably, but
Yeah.
they kind of took it a little
Well,
bit.
I mean,
easy,
I think we
perhaps.
saw this, and COVID was a big factor. But
Yeah.
you know, the primary happened in 2020, and a lot of these races shifted. I mean, Von Imhoff was losing, and then she came back. Cog Hill,
Yeah.
a bunch of these people. So, and we talked about this before. We touched on it, but my understanding with the ranked choice element is they're going to do the first round of tabulation, but they aren't going to retabulate the new totals. They aren't going to recycle the votes until all the ballots come in, which could be 2 more weeks.
Well, so yeah, it's down the road in this general election, they will have 10 days for ballots to come in, and then they essentially they have to certify in 15 days. So arguably, we will have an election where we won't know a vote total till November 23rd, and we have a governor that takes office the first
Monday in December.
Monday in December. So I was actually going to ask Jason that question, but I was like, I won't put him on the spot tonight. But it's a question that we should ask and people should be aware of heading into this.
Well, Ivan, I think it's very safe to say that Palin, Begich, and Gross are going, and then Peltola likely. But again, there's going to be if there's 148,000 votes, for example, right now it's 126. That's through 610. So more votes have come in, I assume, those last couple days and today. So if there's 40,000 votes, we had 90,000 more votes out there, which that's a lot. I mean, when you're looking at,
But like I
hundreds
said,
or thousands of votes.
I think Mary was weakest at the beginning when she was least known, and she had the most to gain going through the campaign. And so I don't think she comes down. I think she goes over 8, and no one catches her from there. So I think it's done. I think we can go home.
Oh, Ivan, I got a text earlier saying, have Ivan on more often. I could just listen to him talk for hours. Got a text from somebody. Big
Well,
fan.
I don't think. I think that these numbers for candidates who aren't in the top 4 as they stand now, it's an alarming. It's alarming, right? If you're looking at your totals and you're saying I'm at 1.5%, 2%, 3%, and you were thinking I potentially am advancing, you're going into the weekend and you're probably meeting tomorrow morning or Monday morning, and you're having a major strategy session to say, what does this look like? Do we think there's votes out there that that will come in for us? But yeah, I mean, it doesn't make you feel good.
I just got a text from somebody. Nat Hertz tweeted, ADN reporter, email from the election fairy godmother says another batch of results will be coming soon.
Oh.
This was a few minutes, so let's just keep sticking around here and we'll keep, well, I don't know, is it working?
So are we taking bets on how things shift?
Well, you just got done saying it was over, so. No.
I'm still showing a dead URL. I don't know if
dead
they changed,
URL. So
I
I opened mine in a different window, so I didn't refresh the page I was on. So
let me refresh that and see if they've changed something. Yeah, now it's working. So if you refresh it, so it's still showing 48,000. So the question, Matt, to touch on what you just said, if a lot of these people like Wool and Constant, they're doing not very well right now. I think the deadline to withdraw from the primary is next week. So are some of these candidates just going to say, or Revac as well? He didn't have a good showing. Are they just going to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not even going to waste my time in this other.
I would imagine that candidates are going in with their teams. I mean, look, there are 40. I think there's a lot of people who are eyeing other people's campaigns and being like, hey, I need staff. Come join my team. I mean, that's what happens with campaigns. You cannibalize the people who didn't advance. So I think that some of these people are going to say, join my cause. I wouldn't be surprised. If you look in the FEC filing, even their donors, you look at like Tara Sweeney, Nick Begich, like they have similar donors. There's people who've donated to both of them. In the same way, you see Chris Constant, Mary Peltola, there's donors that have donated to both of them. I mean, the funny part is like the Begich family, Deborah Bonito donates to Mary Peltola, Mark Begich donates to Chris. They kind of just they're like, hey, we'll just split the baby and all will be good. But you could definitely see that there may be a kumbaya, let's come together, I'll support the cause, let's see what happens. I can imagine that there's going to be people who, in the next couple days, probably come out, endorse someone, we'll see what the totals say, but in the next few days, someone will come out and endorse someone who's advancing, I would imagine.
Ivan?
What?
I thought you were going to say something.
Oh, no.
Maybe not.
No, I was actually just thinking about the Final Four because, like I said, I think it's done, and the foursome is set.
I'm open. I would entertain having that conversation. Like, if that's the Final Four, what does it?
I mean,
do?
if, as you say, there aren't the kind of regional differences that can play into this, right? And it's really just all early vote versus vote that comes in incrementally later up until the final mail ballots get received 10 days after the election day, right? And so you're not going to get those kind of big shifts like we saw in the 2020 presidential election with the mail vote versus the in-person vote. Well, you may get some of that because there is, as you said, some in-person vote, which hasn't been.
Well, I think Ivan made a good
yet.
point. I mean, Peltola really sadly kind of people
But
just sadly they kind of knew who she was, but then recently I've seen her in the last 10 days.
I mean, she's 3 points ahead. Santa's got 5. He's in 5th. Mary is just under 8. I mean, that's like in terms of a gap between 4th and 5th, that is huge.
Yep.
And like I said, she's going to be stronger later because she was least known earlier.
So what is this? If this holds, you have 2 conservatives and basically 2 progressives.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about the allocation of your
Right.
poll and all that. That's really interesting. Who gets 4th?
And who gets 4th in terms of when people rank choice vote? Like if it's a Palin, Begich, Gross, and Peltola foursome, then one of Gross or Peltola is going to be eliminated first. And it's just a matter of which one it is. And whichever one is eliminated first, 3/4 of their vote goes to the other.
I mean, if it's if this is any indication of what's going to happen in the ranked choice general, Peltola will go out first. Her vote's probably mostly recycled to Gross.
I wouldn't bank on that.
But yeah, things are going to change. I mean, we're going to have a big election. We're going to have a lot of money spent. Matt, how much money is going to be spent, and what's going to be, what's the next few months going to look like? And these people are all for in the regular primary too.
It's going to be very fascinating. I don't think that I don't think the like the moderate middle. I have a hard time thinking the moderate middle joins Al Gross. Like,
Well, and the Democrats, they did that thing where they called him
Yeah.
a loser. So now, I mean, are they just going to say vote for Peltola, don't vote for? I mean, are they going to change
The
their
whole,
tune
the
on that?
whole of the moderate middle out to the left is going to be faced with the choice of, do we vote for Al Gross or do we vote for Mary Peltola? I think Mary is probably going to consolidate more than half that vote. And I think Al Gross goes out first. And then Mary ends up in the lead with 3 people left, and it comes down to which one of Sarah Palin or Nick Begich is in a better position.
This is a situation where I think
it's fascinating
this drop-off
stuff.
thing might be a real issue because
I mean, that's why I said that 4 is such a cool number. It's better than 3, because with 3, you just get 1 that's eliminated and then it's all over. 4 gives the potential for 2 on either side, which results in then a contest between the 2 on the left and then between the 2 on the right. And then you get the final. It's like 2 semifinals and a final. It's perfect.
While we're waiting for more results, I want to thank our sponsors again. Blueprint Alaska, Sarah Rickman Ward, Press PR and Communications, great firm. She's doing awesome work. If you ever need any kind of PR or comms work, give Sarah Rickman Ward a call at Blueprint Alaska. Cascadia Cross Border Law Group, my good friend Margaret Stock. She's a kind of premier immigration attorney in the country. She's kind of known worldwide for her work in immigration, and she's a great friend of mine, great attorney, immigration attorney. And then Jason Gren over at Alaskans for Better Elections, who are still out there, informing and educating voters on this. We really want to thank our sponsors for making the show possible. And obviously GCI is our premier sponsor, who's been really helpful and supportive in making live streams like this possible. So really want to thank the sponsors, and also Scott Jensen and Carolyn Hall. They're here helping us out with. Ivan's taking a selfie. Want to thank them for running the show. Scott's doing a great job back there. I don't know if can you come on, Scott, and say hi, or no? Can you come on with the voice? He's a no. Anyways, he's doing a great job back there, and obviously Matt and Ivan for coming on here and talking with us about these results.
So, I'd be interested in picking up kind of a little bit of what Ivan was saying. And you asked about kind of where I said I don't know if they'll go to Al Gross. It's a very fascinating thing. Like, Al Gross spent $19 million of his campaign war chest in 2020. He essentially, so it's like $18 million of his campaign. He had an $18 million of an outside group, and he was able to essentially materialize 41.5% of the vote. I laugh because in 2014, when Forrest Dunbar ran against Don Young, he got 42% of the vote, and he spent $160,000. So, that is the high margin for Al Gross. I think a Mary Peltola or a candidate to the left, we see, can eat into the left of that. So a little bit to your point, does Al Gross get squeezed significantly by a more progressive candidate? And what does that mean? And where do those voters go? Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of moderate middle that are going to say, they're going to look at the 2020 race. They're going to look at how flip-floppy Al Gross has been. There's a lot on Al Gross that is out there.
Ivan, would Al Gross be doing this well if he hadn't have run for the Senate in 2020?
People wouldn't know who he was.
That's right.
I mean, obviously, that's why he was a shoo-in on this race. Was because he spent so much money in 2020 running Bear Doctor ads that everyone hated, but they were very effective in getting his name ID up.
Bear Doctor. Jesus. And then there was the whole thing where it turned out that the friend actually shot the bear.
Yeah.
Matt, you were Sullivan's campaign manager back then.
I was Sullivan's campaign manager.
You were very involved.
He's
in
just
that
I
race.
mean, look, he's just a bad candidate. Like, that guy has more baggage than the handlers out at the Alaska Airlines ramp. Like, and it just never came out because it didn't have to. He's just a bad candidate. Like, he spent $20 million and did very little. Look, I just feel like a lot of people are going to have to find a home if the shakeup is Sarah Palin, Nick Begich, Al Gross, Mary Peltola. There's a lot of people at the end of all this who are saying, where am I headed?
What about the Trump factor? He's running ads on the radio for Sarah Palin. There's a rumor that he's going to be coming up here in July. I keep hearing that. I haven't heard a time or a date or a location. But is that? I mean, he's been involved in a lot of these races across the country, and he's got a good track record so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think the president's going to come to Alaska. The former president's going to come to Alaska because he said he would. And
there's that Murkowski thing.
Yeah, so what that looks like, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I imagine it's a pit stop at a hangar off the airport, and it's a short visit. I mean,
so someone told me in Fairbanks, a friend of mine, that he wanted to come. He was going to come to Fairbanks, and he wanted essentially a football, like a large arena, and they offered him his handlers, the Carlson Center, and apparently that wasn't good enough.
It wasn't good enough.
We need something bigger, and that was what they had to offer. So that was a problem with the negotiation. Have you heard that?
I have not heard that story, but
Might have changed since. He hasn't been able to fill a lot of the more recent places he's had rallies. So
I do think if he comes up here, I think it's going to.
I think it'll be
a crazy event.
It'll be
I think
5 to 7,000 people crowded in a room.
Here's a thought about Sarah Palin's 33% number, and this is assuming that this 48,000 batch is the earliest vote that came in. With a 48-person field, the people who are going to be leaving their vote until later on are the people who are undecided, need to look around, find out about all the candidates. And let's face it, if there are voters out there who are going to be marking their ballot off the first day when it comes in, Sarah Palin voters.
And
So
again, I want to just real quick thank Ivan Moore from Alaska Survey Research and Matt Shuckerow from Fathom Strategic Communication. A few people have texted me and they asked me to keep reminding people who we have in the studio here. So I want to thank you guys.
So I think her 33 is coming down. But obviously, with that much vote in, it's not coming down, probably down into the 20s.
Let me ask this: we've kind of acknowledged this a little bit, but is it general agreement that the winner of the special election goes on to win in November?
Not necessarily. I think if you're like a Coghill or a Constant or a Wool or a whatever who's getting into the real thing, and you're filed as of June, how are you going to raise money? I mean, you're not. It's going to be a completely in terms of the final four in the real thing being the same as the final four. Will the winner in November be the same as the winner for the special? That's more up in the air.
Yeah, and that's my question. Do we go? Are we sending someone down to Washington D.C. in arguably in September, where they'll be in session for 2 weeks in September, they'll move in, and then they'll be in recess for probably the whole of October. So they'll spend a week and a half in D.C., get sworn in, take a few pictures, and then come back and campaign. Is that person we send the person that gets elected?
I think it's likely. Yeah. Because obviously they'll have an advantage in fundraising. They won the first time around.
Well, and think of all the press and coverage they'll get
unless they do something
whoever wins
stupid.
is going to be.
And then do we think that do we think a lot of candidates who are signed up for the general election who don't advance, do we think that there's a lot that stay in this race? Or do we see
we're past the withdrawal deadline, right?
No, we're not. The withdrawal deadline for the primary, I think it's June 26th.
Oh, okay.
I'll pull it up and check, but I believe it's June 26th.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of them probably go.
And there's also a withdrawal deadline for the general too, which is after the primary. But I do think some people are going to withdraw here for the.
I mean, I would imagine so. I think that particularly you're going to see people unifying around a couple candidates. I definitely see that.
Pull up that calendar here.
I'd be interested. There's a lot of. I mean, I associate and I talk to a lot of folks that are voters of Sarah Palin and Nick Begich, and I'd be interested to think or just to discuss briefly the thought process behind kind of what the driving forces of the. I mean, there's a lot of establishment Republicans who voted. I know establishment Republicans who were all voting for Sarah Palin. And there's also a lot of establishment Republicans, and the party apparatus has gotten behind Nick Begich.
Aren't Palin and Begich, aren't they going to have to play nice with each other because they want the others' votes? If you pick Palin first, Begich is going to want you to pick him second, and vice versa.
Because
Sure.
No, because ideology being what it is, the vast majority of voters will be Palin Begich either first or second, and then Gross and Peltola either third or fourth.
But if you're Palin,
or
if you're
it'll be
Palin,
the other way around with the pairs switched.
but if you're Palin or
You-
Begich and you alienate the other's voters, and they don't pick you second.
But they're going to pick you. Well, I mean, is a conservative, just because Begich hits Palin, going to vote Begich in fourth place and put Al Gross and Mary Peltola ahead of them? I don't think that's much of a risk. I think there's much more upside in knocking vote off, typical reason why people negative campaign.
I mean,
right?
I think when every campaign that once you're advancing is going.
Wait, we have some more results.
Okay.
Oh.
Now we're at 67,000. So Begich actually went up. Let's pull up. Let's get Scott to pull up the big screen here. Just Scott, go back to the main page and refresh the main page. That's what you have to do, and then it should refresh. We're showing 67,650 now. So what's that? About 20,000 more votes than before. So Begich is 18.94%. He went up.
So we had.
Al Gross went down to 13.11%. Palin went up.
Here we go.
Here we go. Let's show this here. This is now 20,000 more votes. I think this is going to be it for tonight. So let's just go through this. We got Begich went up a few percent, almost 19%.
So in our first round, we had 8.3% of the vote. Now we have 11.2. So
Santa's gone down. Oh dear.
Calcula went up, I think. He was below 3, wasn't he?
No,
Well-
he was in the threes. He's
Keep
a
going.
this is the interesting part, that you got to keep the old one up. Otherwise, it's hard to compare
Yeah.
because it goes away. So,
So Al
Gross
Gross went down.
13.
He was at 15, I think, before it. Just show the main one for now, Scott, and we'll go back to the old one if we need to. But let's just keep going down to the... So Gross went down a little bit. I think he was at 15. He lost almost 2 points. That could be some of that Democratic Party coming out there and saying, don't vote for him. A lot of these kind of nothing, very
phone calls.
meaningless votes or no totals. Now Palin went up. Let's look at that. She was at 33. Right now she's...
35.
Palin
Up
was
to-
at 16,148 votes. Now she's at 23,000.
Peltola went down.
Yeah, she has.
She was at 7%, wasn't she?
Peltola was 7.89. Now she's 6.
She went down a full percent.
Tara Sweeney went up. Tara Sweeney went from Tara Sweeney 3.29. Oh, just to 3.44. So
So it looks like it's basically the same. Some changes, though. I mean, Palin picked up votes. Begich picked up votes.
Interesting.
Gross and Peltola both lost vote percentages. Adam Wool, too,
Can
wow.
we just pan up and see who came last? Bradley Welter has 9 votes.
Who
Can
came?
we see?
Let me see here. Yeah, it looks like 9.
I just laugh. Like, don't these guys
That was
have
yeah.
10 friends?
Bradley Welter, 9
I
votes.
used that example earlier, which was like, you get your circle out, but I guess some of these people don't have.
Right.
Well, again, we still have at least, 60,000 more votes, but there's going to be more votes coming in. So this is still now I'm hearing there's a third round coming.
Oh,
Now they're saying a third round is coming. So we can keep, I don't think much is going to change. It looks like this is kind of where we're going to be
The
at.
people are here to watch us, Jeff.
We got to give the people what they want. Wow, yeah, the Peltola, I'm not shocked, but I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Sweeney with that PAC money that was backing her, and she was very kind of all over the place. And Peltola has, it looks like, double the vote of Sweeney, right? What's Sweeney at? 3.44, and Peltola's at 6.83, so almost double the vote.
here's the deal. When I did the poll last month, and Palin came first, and Begich came second, and Al Gross came third, 2 Republicans and 1 quasi-Democrat. When you took those 3 out of the equation and looked at the party affiliation and ideology, basically of the other 50%, it's actually quite Democratic, progressive leaning, the rest. Because there was a bunch of Democrats saying, oh, we're not going to get someone in. But it was overwhelmingly likely that the 4th place person was going to be someone from the left, because Palin and Begich were sucking so much of the Republican vote out that it was tough for any of the Republicans. Like, I didn't even notice what Revak was on. What did he end up?
Revak right now was with
1,200 votes, 1.8%.
Yeah, so that was the battle that Tara was fighting, because she was a Republican in the rarefied air of the 50% once
Let's see if
Begich
we can.
and Palin
Scott,
had
do you have
sucked all
Ivan's
the
poll?
air
Do you have
out.
Ivan's poll pulled up there still? Because it looks like Scott's still got that poll we're going to pull up. But that's interesting. It was Palin, Begich, Gross, right?
Yeah.
In your poll, which is where we are right now, and then I mean,
Yeah, no, the interesting thing is how high up Sarah is, because everything else was pretty much spot on in terms of Peltola looking good, Santa Claus being on the cusp. I'm still disappointed that I know Mary. I really admire Mary, but I was kind of rooting for Santa.
Here's Ivan's poll from a month ago, which is obviously Palin has a lot more than 19. Palin has almost as much as all the other three combined. She has more than Begich and Gross, and if you add Peltola in there, they have more combined. But I mean, that's a lot.
Well, this is that question you were just talking about, which is the Begich and Palin and first and second place votes. Like, the ideal position, obviously, is if you're, Sarah Palin wants all of Nick's number twos, and Nick wants all of Sarah Palin's number twos. But the only way it ever triggers is if you're getting knocked out. So you got to be running ahead, and based on this sort of stuff, I mean, Sarah Palin.
I mean, if you had Palin's percentage with Begich's percentage,
Yeah, it's almost
you're at
exactly the same.
54%. I mean, this is it seems like
But again, the big problem. I guess the big problem here is that we're going to have a turnout of 28 or 30% of voters, and a general election in a non-presidential year will have 53% of vote, 50 to 53 in a non-presidential year. So the name of the game here is and can be turnout, and can you get people to get out? And that's the big equalizer, is that there are buckets of voters. You just have to reach them.
And it's a primary. It's a special, and the turnout is lower, and the general will be a different thing.
I'm kind of curious where this is going to appear on the ballot. You're going to have U.S. It's probably going to be last. You're going to have U.S. Senate, U.S. House for the regular primary, governor.
What are we talking about?
When you get the primary ballot, the regular primary ballot,
It's going to be first or last.
Is it going to be last? Because then there could be big drop off.
Well, there's all
Some drop off.
It's going to be, there's going to be a governor's race, a U.S. Senate race. So there's going to be the main ballot: governor's race, U.S. Senate race, U.S. congressional race, your state senate, your state house.
Unless you're in Donnie Olson's district, you're not going to see that.
The ballot question on constitutional convention, which
that's the general, though, right?
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Well, if we're talking primary, but you're right.
I'm talking about where will the special general ranked choice election appear on the primary ballot?
It's a different ballot.
It's got to be a different form.
No, I think it's the same.
Or yeah.
It's
I thought it was the same
no,
ballot.
it's a different ballot. I'm pretty sure. I'm not going to. We should stake my life on it.
If anybody knows that, I'd like to know, because I thought I was told they did this to save money, to have it on the same ballot.
Sure.
Which, if it's at the bottom,
but I guess, Jeff, if you're having a full one-page, it's going to be 30. Potentially, it's 38 people, so it's going to be a long, big sheet of paper. I mean, either your ballot is 3 feet long.
31.
Either your ballot's 3 feet long, or it's 2 pages.
And then, of course, you've got people voting on machines, right? So.
I got a text from somebody that might have some insight into this. It's at the end of the regular primary ballot, someone just told me. So if that's the case, I mean, it's going to be such a high-profile race. I don't think there's going to be. And when I say drop-off for the folks watching, what happens is people they want to vote president, Senate, Congress, but then when they get down to these more local races, a lot of times people just don't vote if they don't have a reason to vote for somebody. If it's not that exciting, if it's at the bottom, this one's exciting, but it's also going to be at the bottom. So
and this to what I just said, what I said earlier, which is this is a primary, it's 30%, and the next one. I mean, the next one is also a primary, so we'll have to see what the turnout is on the next one. I'm catching myself here. The August 16th election, we don't know what turnout will be. If the turnout will be closer to 30%, which we see in primaries, or closer to 50%, which we see in
I think it's going
generals?
to be quite high, just because
Yeah.
of the Senate race high profile, the House race high profile, the governor's race high
Sure.
profile, and then a lot of these local legislative. I mean, it's primary, so it's not as
I mean,
big
most
for
people,
doesn't matter for those local races.
on
because it's
August
not-
16th, people are going to vote not really because of their local legislator or the governor's race, because it doesn't really matter in most of these races. They're going to go vote August 16th because of the special election. So, I mean, I think you're going to see a lot of people spending a lot of money on doing this. And look, I think the ability to raise money and raise cash here, I think, is going to be huge. I mean, if you look at the way Sarah Palin raised money, she raised $600,000. I mean, she spent a lot of money to raise that, but a lot of that came from her network of people across the country. She has 4 million Facebook followers. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you can get just a fraction of that to donate $5, you're rolling in campaign money, and I think that gives her this ability. And look, I have some people talking to me that are saying, look, if you're Sarah Palin and this is your numbers, I mean, your team is pretty happy, because the goal is to run ahead and get that drop off, or to get, to trigger ranked choice voting and to ultimately pull ahead. I mean, there's a possibility that Sarah Palin goes on and is the next Congresswoman.
Ivan, how much have you done here trying to pull this ranked choice, where you're trying to ask people? I mean, you've done some of this, right? But
Yeah,
now
quite a
you're going to
bit.
have real people to.
Well, we've done the 4-person ranked choice votes, and it's fascinating to see the dynamics.
I'm trying to see if we can get Sarah Palin on here, but I'm not sure. But we'll wait a few minutes. But I mean, for now, I think we're going to get some more results maybe tonight. But I doubt it's going to change much. I mean, there could be a few percent here and there change. But it looks like very, very likely it's going to be Palin, Begich, Gross, and Peltola as the top 4 for the special general election, which will be ranked choice, which is going to be on the primary ballot.
Yeah, and I'm hearing from folks that say the state race is on the front, the federal race is on the back. Trust me.
That's like a mullet. Business in the front, party in the back.
Yeah.
Trust me. It's in August. It's the same sheet of paper.
What we need is Kevin Meyer to be on here. That's who we need. That's our guy.
So I guess it's gonna be a potential. We're having a 3-foot-long ballot. It's like a CVS receipt.
And I assume it's going to be old school, where you go vote in person, but you can request an absentee ballot. They aren't going to be sending out ballots like this they did for the primary mail ballots. It's going to be more of a traditional. You can early vote. You can get an absentee. You can go on you can go on election day. So maybe we'll do our election event for that, and we'll see kind of how the numbers trickle in. But it has been frustrating lately. I mean, I watch these races in Europe with the French election for the president, the election, and for the prime minister. No, president. They have anyways, in a lot of these countries, like, who it is the next day or the same day. But here, we've just seen increasingly where you have to wait days and weeks sometimes to get the results, which is very frustrating.
That was what I was saying. In 2020, we sat there on election night, and we felt like we were, the Alaska U.S. Senate race was the last Senate race called in the country. Now, there was 2 runoffs in Georgia, but the Alaska Senate race, we ended up, Dan Sullivan, I managed that race, we ended up winning by 14 points. I mean, that's a huge win. And, that was what our internal poll numbers had us winning at. Other public pollsters released other numbers, but we had solid numbers. But we didn't get that race called until, the election was November 8th. The AP didn't call it till November 17th, and they were slowly trickling out numbers.
And even a lot of our local races weren't called until for weeks after which it frustrates me. In the past, we used to have a really good idea of who won these races on the night, and sometimes if they were very close, it would take a little while. But I don't know. I just watch all these elections in Europe, and they seem to have it figured out where they can have a pretty good idea of the same day or the next day who won. Well, I think for now, guys, there's not much more we're going to say. I think we've said most of it here, and it sounds like there's going to be one more batch of results out. So you can go to the Alaska Division of Elections website, folks, and click on the results tab and update it. And I think there's going to be, it sounds like, according to Nat Hers from the Division of Elections over there, one more tally tonight. And then there's going to be, on the 15th and the 17th, more results, and we'll know by the 21st. But it's going to be a very busy next 2 months for this special general and then regular primary. And there's 59 legislative races, a U.S. Senate race, a regular special general U.S. House and a regular primary U.S. House, a governor's race. So it's going to be a very, very kind of busy next few months and even next 5 months up until November. So I want to thank Matt Shuckerow, political consultant, Fathom Strategic Communications, Ivan Moore, Alaska Survey Research, pollster. First time on the show, Ivan. What do you think?
Yes,
Did you have a
great.
good time?
Fun.
Have to have you again. I've got
Yeah,
some text about
anytime.
your voice. They like that. It's a soothing. They like that. So and again, I want to thank one more time our sponsors, Blueprint Alaska, PR and Communications, Sarah Ward over there
I'm
doing a
going to
great
put
job.
a shout out for the Netflix movie with Adam Sandler, Hustle. I watched it. It's pretty
it a
legit.
good show?
It's a good movie. It's a good movie.
Just unrelated to anything.
Unrelated to this.
I like that. We're not getting paid for that even.
Adam Sandler did the Hidden Gems movie. He said, if I don't win an Oscar,
Uncut
I'm never
Gems.
Uncut Gems.
Great movie.
He said, if I don't win an Oscar, I'm never making a good movie again. And he made trash, but he made this movie Hustle. It's about the NBA.
I saw the preview for that. It looks
it's
pretty
good.
good. So
It's
I'll
good.
check that out. So again, Sarah Ward, Blueprint Alaska, Margaret Stock at Cascadia Cross Border Law Group, providing great immigration attorney legal services. She's kind of world famous. So if you have any immigration issues, Ivan, maybe give her a call. I don't know how that's going. And then Alaskans for Better Elections, Jason Gren for being our sponsor and for keeping up with the educating Alaskans about this new system. GCI, one of our kind of premier sponsors. And I want to thank Scott Jensen back there for running the show and doing all the great electronics and audio and video for the show. And we're doing more of these shows. We're going to be doing debates. We're going to be doing a show for the primary, a show for the general, and other shows talking about some of these races. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more updates here and more shows, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's